Welcome, fellow plebs. My name is Sean, and this is
Tribunus Plebis.
Welcome back, everybody, and as usual, I appreciate the hell out of all of you. Today, I want to go through and talk about several items, a little slate cleaning, I guess. I've been a little behind on covering current events here due to actually the situation I'll talk about here first. And that first subject is a little bit more personal than the other two, but the other two are definitely more significant in, the public zeitgeist in the real world, them being, Kyle Rittenhouse and the Ahmaud Arbery trial. But first, a little anecdote. This past week, I made use of a government program to get some food into our house. I went to one of the local grocery stores and I put a bunch of food on the conveyor belt at the checkout, and it totaled into the 3 figures. And I handed over this program card, and the woman swiped it and she said, $18, please. So I got a bunch of food for just $18, essentially free food. And yeah, I know it's not, air quotes, really free. I understand that taxes pay for these programs and stuff, but at the time, it's basically free food. And as I stood there paying my $18, I felt pangs of guilt. I shouldn't have, but I did. And it was, in hindsight, it's kind of stupid, but I also get it. And I want to present to you now a brief version of kind of my recent story and why I was in that store using this program. So in the spring, I fell and I tore up my shoulder. I hurt it pretty badly, and I couldn't do my job anymore. So I spent 3 months on light duty at work waiting for my surgery appointment, which basically means that I was making 60% of my 40-hour paycheck. And as someone who works a lot of overtime, this was a massive cut in pay. In reality, it was probably closer to like 40% of my actual pay than 60. And all of that is just to say that these 3 months really hurt the bank account and wallet. And then it got worse. And it was because of our absolute nightmare of a healthcare and insurance system. And I went nearly 4 months with absolutely no income at all, not a single penny. Now, along the way, we did have some income in the house due to my awesome wife and her small business, but her business has been extremely slow due to COVID. And, it's only recently beginning to pick up, but it's still super slow. And she also trooped over to another part-time job and made a little extra money doing deliveries and cleaning at a machine shop that my brother-in-law owns. So 3 months on, about 40, maybe 45% of my regular income, and almost 4 months with no personal income at all, which was buffered a bit by my wife's income. Which, again, is all just to say that these last 6 months or so have been pretty brutal from a financial sense. Thankfully, my state benefits came in just after I did this shopping, and, we are on sure footing moving forward, but it hasn't been easy. The coffers got pretty damn empty, and we saw a lot of cobwebs in them. Now, up to this point in my life, I had never used any sort of welfare or food stamp type program before. Not as a kid with a single mother and a sister, and, my mother grinding to keep us in our home in a safe neighborhood. Not as a teen, not as a young man, never. I've never used it. This was the first time, and I felt an intense guilt doing it. Now, the reason why I told you all of that, about the injury, the hard luck story, the extended time off with little and then no income, and that I've never used a welfare program before, I told you all that for a reason. What I'm hoping most people who listen to this did was say to themselves something like, "That's okay, bro. That's why we have these programs. You needed some help and you got it. These programs are there to help get people back on their feet." And there's some portion of those people who also thought, just don't abuse it. And all of these people are the people I thought about while checking out. Those people and, of course, the bigot. Because I've seen the Facebook posts and the op-eds and the Twitter threads saying stuff like, "Today I was in the grocery store and I saw a woman and her kid checking out in front of me, and they had $200 worth of groceries and they only paid $23 for all of it. And the whole time the clerk was checking her out, she was on her iPhone, and she and her kids had name brand clothes on, And then when I went outside, I saw her loading groceries into a newer Toyota Camry. And of course, these sorts of diatribes always end with something like, if you can't afford food, then maybe you shouldn't have a name brand shirt on, or a new phone, or a newer car. Take the bus, wear Hanes t-shirts, and get a track phone. And then a bunch of assholes clap, react, and say amen in the comments. And I haven't even brought up that this is almost always white people commenting on people of color in these situations. Because, like large, straight white guys like myself, we just don't trigger the same racist bullshit that lurks deep in the various and numerous Karens and Kens out there that darker skinned people, or say more obviously LGBTQ people do. Here's the thing though. I've been relatively poor as an adult, though I've been blessed to have never been truly destitute. And I've had nice things at the same time. And you know why? Because my parents were able to give me things. Because I had friends who could help me out. I had personal safety nets that many don't have access to. And to turn this back to my experience checking out and feeling guilty, I was standing there during the process and messing around on my Galaxy Note phone, wearing a name brand shirt and jeans and nice sneakers. Then I left that store and I got into a nice looking SUV. Now, it's entirely possible that some dork in that line or one of the lines next to me watched me load up a bunch of food onto the checkout counter and pay just $18 for it. And then they noticed my phone and my clothes and the car I rode in, and maybe they went home and complained that this person with all of these things, all of these supposed signals of wealth, got free groceries, which he, the ranting guy, worked so hard for, and he, the ranting guy, is so sick of his taxes going to such lazy shits. Maybe they even went on Facebook and typed out one of those stereotypical screeds about this lazy person with a phone and car who is stealing from the taxpayers. And I guess the main point here, well, I guess there's at least 2 points here. The first is that we shouldn't feel guilty to get help. We need to normalize in some way people just getting help when they need it. We need to normalize ourselves getting help to survive in this fucked up world. We needed help, and we got some. We shouldn't feel guilty about that. This culture is really fucking with our heads. And listen, I don't personally judge people for needing help. I want more people to get this sort of help. Yet there I was, psychically harming myself for getting food that we really, really needed when we really, really didn't have the cash for it. And it's really sad that our culture has driven this much fear and guilt into us so that when we are broke or struggling and needing help, we feel beat down and guilty and unworthy of it. And the second point, and maybe this is the kind of the broader point that I'm getting at, is that none of us knows what another person is going through by noticing what sort of smartphone they have. We can't suss out that a person who's struggling might have parents who have them on the family phone plan, or that they found that fancy shirt at Salvation Army or Goodwill, or that it was a gift. We have no idea that maybe their parents gave them that Camry when they themselves bought a new car. We don't know if this person was doing fine 6 months ago, but hurt their shoulder and is running into roadblock after roadblock, getting an insurance payment. And then after, 3 or 4 months, they just needed help, and that they will be back on their feet in another month or two. We know precisely none of this from the outside. Nobody who might have judged me at this moment in my life knows anything about me. The Galaxy Note that's, 5 models old and cracked, the clothes that were mostly all gifts, the nice SUV I got into that was my mother's. They know none of it, but they might judge me for any of it. They would have no idea that I can't, lift my arm past my chest and can't work. And even more important than all of that, we shouldn't involve ourselves with other people's situations anyways, especially as social media commentary. It's none of our damn business, people. We don't know what's going on in anyone else's lives, and we shouldn't care. Let people live and mind your own goddamn business. What I'm suggesting here, and I guess asking for, is that everybody who heard my story here and thought, hey, that's okay, you needed help. All of you, please give that same grace to the next person you see getting help, but whose story you absolutely, definitely do not know. Don't concern yourself with the phone and the trappings. Just give the grace, man. Just give them the grace. Okay, Kyle Rittenhouse. And I'm going to do my best here to be nice and kind. Now, for my part, dude should have been guilty in a just world. But I can't change all that shit, and honestly, stuff like this, it just exhausts me so much that I don't even want to argue with anyone about it, or even like, I don't even feel like laying out an elaborate argument at this point. Because why bother? We all saw what happened both on that night and in the trial. I'm not going to change your mind. But setting aside all of that as best we can, what's my biggest takeaway from this entire fiasco? Well, I think that there are people who just say, yeah, the situation was messed up, but technically that was arguably self-defense, and he got a jury trial, and he probably should have been not guilty based on those technicalities. And for the purposes going forward here, let's just accept that, and I'll address it a little bit in a second, but first let's talk about the weirdos who are valorizing this dude. These people are the real problem. Well, the supposed justice system is a real problem, but that's a different episode, I think. So I'll just let that slide past and say this. I can understand the argument for technically this was self-defense, even if I disagree with those technicalities. What I can't understand is looking at Kyle Rittenhouse and saying, that man's a hero, and then turning him into a hero and worshiping him. I just started seeing a meme of a Wheaties box with this idiot on the cover, and it's calling him an American hero. Like I said, these people are a problem. Anyone watching a 17-year-old travel to another city, acquire a rifle, and then go out in civil unrest looking to engage with human beings with said rifle, and coming away with the impression that they are seeing something heroic or worthwhile, are just deeply and probably irrevocably broken. Even worse is that other people more ideologically and maliciously driven, the same sorts of people turning this guy into a folk hero, they're now feeling like following in his footsteps is now justified and will bank on this precedent to protect them. And next time these people will just shoot other people and pull that bullshit cop excuse of fearing for their life because they saw it work once. And honestly, they'll probably get off. And let's talk about the technicalities here. The technicalities that got Rittenhouse off. Not specifically, but more broadly. This is going to be the same argument I make when talking about cops strangling and choking people to death and being protected due to technicalities and excuses. If the circumstances that lead to a cop murdering somebody on a sidewalk or in the back of a police car or a police van are, quote unquote, within the rules and procedures in the manual, and that is getting cops off of murder charges, then we shouldn't accept this. We should change the goddamn rule book. We've seen it way too often, like more than 0 times, a cop do something that leads to the death of a citizen, and they get off because some Section 35, subsection 3, paragraph B, line K, says that it's okay to do, and too many people just say, oh, okay, it was okay then, it was in the manual. Like, no, dummy, it's not okay. Someone is dead. Someone was killed. That shit needs to change. Likewise, if this Rittenhouse situation was technically self-defense, then maybe the concept of self-defense, the sets of circumstances that can trigger strong self-defense arguments in a legal sense, maybe they are simply too broad to be meaningful at this point, and we really need to take a look at the legal precedents here and carve off the loose edges. What we need to consider is, why is it okay for people with guns to openly wield them in crowds and to shoot people who scare them, but it never seems to be okay for people in the crowd to be afraid of the people openly wielding guns and to defend themselves from them? Why are gun wielders the only ones allowed to be scared in these situations? In short, Rittenhouse is no hero. He was, at best, a dumb fuck who chose to put himself in a situation with a rifle to purposefully get into conflict with other human beings in a sick and twisted attempt to fulfill his deepest desire: to shoot people with impunity and claim self-defense behind a shield of protecting private property while facing no meaningful consequences from said shooting, all while taking advantage of an overly permissive series of technical protections codified in a Byzantine legal system. Or, in other words, he really wanted to be a cop. Now, how about the Ahmaud Arbery trial? The obviously racist perpetrators were found guilty, and this should be good, right? Well, I guess it's good as far as it goes. And like Tulsi Gabbard says, America is no longer racist because of this verdict. How can it be? White guys got convicted of murdering a black man. And no, that last bit wasn't serious. Of course, Gabbard is a shit human being. I mean, I still can't believe that people ever supported this absolute goon of a woman. It's just sad. Is she this stupid or just this garbage? And, at this level, I'm not even sure it matters. I guess we just have to know that she's trash. And, I guess that was a bit of a rhetorical question anyway. She isn't this dumb. She is calculating trash of a human being. I just didn't want anybody to, misconstrue my words here. But what I'd want to point out here is that these men, the ones who killed Mr. Arbery, including the man who filmed the murder, were all originally let go. They were allowed to walk because they knew people. And they're white, and Mr. Arbery was black. In fact, the local DA, a man who had connections to one of the killers, told the police to make no arrests on at least 2 separate occasions. It wasn't until almost 3 months later, after a local attorney leaked the video to a local radio station and the video went viral, that they arrested the 3 killers. And I think it's important to note that the impetus to arrest these killers was not the video. The cops and DA had all seen the video before they chose not to arrest these cowards. The impetus to arrest them came from public pressure, not the evidence. These racist good old boys were 100% comfortable allowing this murder to go unpunished. And that brief summary in no way begins to shine a light on the good old, man, it's okay, he's just black and probably a criminal anyway, inbred racist bullshit that let these men walk free for so long after so obviously, clearly, and on video murdering an innocent man in cold blood in the middle of a street. So yeah, it's good that they finally were arrested and found guilty of murder. Yay. But Ahmaud Arbery is still dead because of racist scumbags who the police and DA would have absolutely let walk free for the rest of their lives if that local attorney hadn't leaked the video and brought state and national pressure on these racist pigs. And those, my friends, are my thoughts on a couple of big current event stories. I know it wasn't as detailed as we usually get into, but I just wanted to get those things out there. I appreciate all of you for listening. As usual, you can rate and review on Apple. That's really one of the best ways to help out a small podcast. The link's in the description. Join the YouTube channel. We have videos going up. And I think that's it. Take care. Thank you for listening. I love you all.